In this video, we're going to continue our series of looking at assessments that coaches might use when working with leaders and executives to improve their effectiveness. This one will focus on emotional intelligence. For years as a leadership coach, I worked with leaders who needed to improve their emotional intelligence. And I would use books and videos and articles to help them to understand what is emotional intelligence and how might they start to develop along those lines. That was until I discovered that there was a great suite of assessments available to add to my coaching practice. And that made a real difference in how I worked with leaders, because then I would use this assessment to establish a benchmark for where the leader was at a certain moment in time. And it gave ideas on areas of emotional intelligence that they might focus on to develop and become more effective as leaders. I settled on the Genos International suite of emotional intelligence assessments, and that's what we'll be taking a look at in today's video. This is a sample report for the self-leadership report, meaning that the leader takes it and essentially rates themselves. There are no external raters. Note that there are also 180 and 360-degree versions of this report available, 180 being where they don't really have anybody above them, and so there would be people alongside or below them rating them, and the 360 including people above them, and an others category if need be. There's also a sales version of this report, and there's also a version that can be used for hiring purposes, as well as a version that could be used for managers. The same report for managers can also be used for staff. So let's take a look at this report. So we have an introduction that gives a sense of what this report is going to entail and cover in the many pages ahead. This page is an important page that we always stop on when debriefing this report with a client, and that is the Genos model of emotionally intelligent leadership competencies. You can see the 6 core competencies in the blue sections from top to bottom. The 6 being self-awareness, awareness of others, authenticity, emotional reasoning, self-management, and inspiring performance. What's important to note is that when these competencies are in a productive state, you would see the examples on the right side being visible and tangibly present in the workplace. For example, awareness of others when it's in a productive state, it would come across as empathetic, something that we've heard that we'd like to see in a lot of leaders today. Or when emotional reasoning is present, you would get a sense of expansiveness behind the decisions that are made. And then along the left side, you see words that represent an unproductive state for that competency. So going back to awareness of others, you would have people feeling that the leader might be insensitive. Or going back to emotional reasoning, you might see people feeling that the decision-making process, when considering people's emotions and the impact that the decision would have on them, is limited. So what we're looking for, obviously, is for the leader to express emotionally intelligent competencies in productive states. The next few pages explain the measurement mechanisms in the report. The first one are the 2 line charts here that you see, the top line being level of importance. So when the leader actually took the assessment, they were asked to assess the level of importance of an emotional intelligence competency. And then they were asked to rate themselves on their level of demonstration of that competency. Now, in the 2 line charts, you see on the lower one in the level of demonstration section that there is a box. That box represents the average or typical score that would be within the 25 to 75th percentile. It's important because if the level of demonstration falls below that box to the left side of it, then the self-assessed leader would be in the lower quartile. If they were to the right of that box, they would be in the upper quartile. So it's notable and can be interesting. Apart from this measurement, there will also be this traffic light style of measurement, which represents similar information but more too. So you'll see that there is an example here under self-awareness where you have 3 columns. The first column, represented by the capital I, is the level of importance. The second column being the level of demonstration. So those two you saw on the earlier page with the lines. And then the third column with the little d represents the difference between the 2 scores. If the difference is essentially aligned, then that could be seen as a strength, and it would be represented by a green circle. When there's a check in the green circle, that means that the level of demonstration is even higher than the level of importance as deemed by the leader taking the assessment. If there is a yellow circle, that would mean that there is a 1-point difference between the 2, first column and second column. If there is an orange circle, then there would be a 2-point difference between the first or second column, or more than 2 points. And those would obviously be areas that might be focused on by the leader, with the yellow ones being potential areas of focus and green being strengths that should be further strengthened and leveraged. The next page gives the results at a glance for the 6 different competencies. And so you can see all 6 that we looked at earlier. And you can see here in the example that under self-awareness, the leader felt that it's fairly important in their workplace, and they felt that their demonstration of it was at a 4, which would mean that they are feeling that they demonstrate it at a high level, which is within the benchmark, right? Within the average, because it's inside that rectangular box. And it's even higher than their level of importance. So they feel like they're doing a pretty good job there. And the same goes for awareness of others. Now, when it comes to authenticity, they feel like they have some room to grow here because they feel it's quite important, giving it a 4.4, whereas they demonstrated at 1 point less, which is 3.4 and below the benchmark. You see a similar score on emotional reasoning and self-management also. There's a difference of importance and demonstration being less than, not as much, but still less. And then inspiring performance, you see a fairly equal score, 3.6 and 3.6, which does represent below average. And then you have some pages where you have quotes that lead into the next section. And this is where you actually start to see each of the competencies broken down into 7 different sub-elements. So under self-awareness, you see the represented line charts there that we just looked at on a previous page. And then you see the 7 different sub-elements with the traffic light measurement style. On this one, you see a column of green circles with the check marks, meaning that in every case, the leader feels that they demonstrate it at a higher level or equivalent to the level of importance. This leads into the next one, which is awareness of others. Same thing. But then on this one, authenticity, recall that this was the area that the leader felt that they demonstrated it at a lower level than its importance. And so it's not surprising to see not just green circles this time, but some orange and yellow circles. And you see it in number 7, responding effectively when challenged. This leader feels that it's very important to respond effectively when challenged, and yet they gave themselves a 2, which is a big difference of 3 points. And so when we're doing the debrief, we would probably stop there and ask the leader to talk about this score and this competency, and talk about it so that we actually get some discussion going and realize that maybe this is an area that we should work on in the coaching engagement. And of course, there are other areas too, facilitating robust open debate, which is related, being open and honest about mistakes. That's obviously a core element of authenticity that most people look for in their leaders. And then you have the one yellow circle, encouraging others to put forward their thoughts, feelings, and opinions. So lots of opportunity here for discussion with the leader about how they might show up with more authenticity. Then you have emotional reasoning, which is looking better than the previous one, but still there are multiple areas that the leader might work on. For example, item 2, explaining the rationale behind decisions you make. people generally appreciate hearing the rationale behind decisions. And therefore, this is an area that the leader feels this is the most important of the 7, right? They gave this a 5 in level of importance and yet gave themselves a fairly low score. So this is one of the values of a self-assessment, when the leader is willing to be transparent and honest about their areas of shortcoming, so that they are expressing through these assessment ratings where they know that they should focus some more attention to become more emotionally intelligent. And we have more room for opportunity here on self-management. Number 1, specifically effectively managing your emotions in difficult situations. Maybe there's been an incident or 2 in the past that you might talk about, understanding maybe triggers that were present and then how they might approach triggers in the future with a different response, so that people would see that they have a greater degree of self-management, and they would be able to blend that with certain sub-elements of authenticity and come across more strongly and effectively as a leader who is working on themselves. And lastly, we have inspiring performance. This doesn't seem to have too much in the way of the other ones where the leader might work on themselves, but we do have the one, providing constructive feedback on behavior and performance. This is another area where many people would like constructive feedback, but presented in a gentle way, a gentle and positive way, so that the information lands well, is received in an appreciative fashion, in a way that they can do better. And I like to say that that's and even better, as opposed to this is a problem area for you. You can say, and it would be even better if you did this, right, when giving that constructive feedback on behavior and performance. Another opportunity for the coach to have a good conversation with the leader about delivering feedback, because it's such an important part of leadership. So that wraps up those 6 different competencies, and if you added up the numbers, there are 42 different sub-elements that the leader could focus on. But of course, we would never recommend that a leader would focus on 42 different sub-elements or even 6 competencies. We would generally recommend that the leader would pull out a few that they believe would have high impact on their effectiveness and would be visible and make a tangible difference to the people that they lead and their contribution to the culture of the organization. There are some tips provided in the report about how the leader might approach people who participated. In this case, other people didn't participate. I misspoke there. If it was a 180 or 360, we might look at how to talk with others about their participation in the process. But in this case, we're just giving ideas on how they might discuss that they are working on themselves, and they would like to let people know about that and perhaps gain them as allies in the process of self-development. We wrap up the report by taking a look once again at the model and the 6 core competencies and the productive and unproductive states. At this point, you should have had plenty of discussion. Typically, the debrief would take easily an hour, perhaps 2 sessions, to really unpack all the great information that's in this report, and then to create a development plan, which you could coach around over the arc of an engagement, or at least for multiple sessions thereafter. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you have questions about the use of this assessment within a coaching engagement, please feel free to post them below or to email me at michael@bayareaexecutivecoach.com. If you'd like to learn about using this assessment as a coach and be referred to someone at Genos who would be happy to talk with you about that, please contact me once again at michael@bayareaexecutivecoach.com. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an executive and leadership coach through the programs that I deliver as a faculty member of the Center for Executive Coaching, please email me or visit my website dedicated to those programs at bayareaexecutivecoachtraining.com. And of course, I hope that you will like this video, comment on it, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much.